This is about emergent leadership. Emergent leadership, if we consider the studies that show regularly from the gaming industry, the gaming world, more pegs, like World of Warcraft, right? Synonymous with Morpeg. Studies show that the people with the appropriate set of skills and experience and influence rise at the moment when needed, right? So when the crisis arises, that person who is best capable of responding to it, to lead others in responding to it, emerges. We call this emergent leadership. This is something we need to start taking into consideration within an Agile world, because emergent leadership is critical. It's the necessary visionary, as I call it. It's the person who has that idea that can inspire others to take appropriate action and contribute on resolving the problem, right? And they don't remain in leadership. That's not the focus. It's not the point, right? The point of emergent leadership is to deal with that emergent issue as it is occurring and resolve it through the means that are necessary, right? So what does this mean? It's authority on demand, right? And now here's the tricky thing. A lot of people are given responsibility and no authority to fix the situation. And that's that's just tying a goat to the stake and waiting for the T-Rex to come eat it, isn't it? Right? You can't change your conditions, but you're responsible to it. You have nothing that you can do to fix a situation. Now, this is when we're dealing with situations that are not agile, or environments that are not agile, or a culture that doesn't support self-organization and transparency. When we are in one of those environments, this is when we start dealing with what I call subtle leadership. Now, I was in the Marines for 15 years, right? I was not an autocratic leader. I was the democratic leader. I was the odd duck, right? I was the one who just was ass up when everybody else was in formation and going, right? I was the guy who was different. And I made it a point to study when teams were functioning and when they weren't. I mean, this was leadership. This is what the Marine Corps taught at its essence. Every individual who goes into the military is taught leadership. The strength of America's military has been built on the integrity and information that is entrusted with each individual to take the proper action with that information. In other words, leadership at every level. Okay? So leadership at every level allows for emergent leadership styles in crisis. That's in the military. So now we're dialing back. While I was in the Marine Corps, I was watching this dynamic, and I always noticed that when there was a highly autocratic leader, command and control, hierarchical, very strong, right? What you expect in the military, I suppose. Staff sergeant, corporals, down to the lance corporals, the privates and the PFCs, right? There was no room for influencing decisions back up, right? It was autocratic, it was hierarchical, it was command and control. However, in those environments, there's always one person at the lowest level of execution, or as the perceived lowest level of execution within that group, element, team, task, whatever you want to call it, because I'm talking outside the Marine Corps again, but back to the Marine Corps, I would always see this one person, and I called it the subtle leader. It's the one person who really understood the mood and the ability of their team members to actually deliver and contribute to the solution of the problem that they might be put to task on. Now, if they're not allowed that voice and they're required to do things in a style by demand, you will do it X, Y, and Z, micromanagement, whatever you want to call it, then there is a frustration and a friction that starts to occur, because the resentment is that they're not allowed to apply their expertise, that which they've been trained to do and entrusted to do, they're not being allowed. So this one person starts to become that voice, and it's just somebody who is truly impassioned about the health of the whole. Now, what is this starting to sound like in Agile terms? This is starting to sound like the person who feels they can best serve others through leadership at times, right? So I'm going to be the voice of these other people because they feel they have no voice, and through my subtle influences, I'm either going to align positively or negatively in opposition to the mission or the vision that has been presented to me by my leadership. The less say I have in the outcome of the success of the plan, the less investment I will give, and the more I'm going to try as a servant leader or a subtle leader, influence the decision to go the right way so that the task can be accomplished properly. Now, this is a frustrated emergent leader, isn't it? I believe so. The whole purpose of these videos, by the way, is for you to listen to them. And if you find value in it, fantastic, that's great. But if you think that I may be a little bit off kilter, please kick me in the shin. Leave a comment. Trolls, do what you're going to do. I'm going to ignore that commentary. But everybody else, please feel free. I'm looking for open and honest discussion. I try and keep a beginner's mind about everything. But this is something I've seen all my life. And I want to put it out there because I think if we can start to understand what this is, emergent leadership in an agile environment, when we're mostly horizontal, is allowed. That person with the expertise steps forward to resolve the problem, aligns these other people who understand and can support, and they contribute and finish it, right? Done. And they go back to doing what they were doing. Now, if I'm in an organization that feels threatened by such behavior, I suppress that. No, it has to work like this. Now, the only reason why there's fear in the process is because we understand we get what we get from it. Whether it can be improved or not, I know right now it's state and I can get that. And that's called a steady state of behavior, right? And I don't know if that's a healthy state or not. If it's a healthy state, fantastic. But if you're making decisions not to change things because you fear you might lose something, that's a risky situation, right? And that's where you find the most emergent leaders trying to solve the problem of how do we become successful despite leadership. I'm going to throw it on the table. The organizational leadership, titled leadership, let's call it titled leadership. Titled leadership by design is there to enforce that which the business wants done in the way the business wants it done. Servant leaders are there to ensure that not just the letter of the law, but the spirit of the law is being maintained. The vision by which we operate, the big why for what we're doing. Now, if there's a strong why for anything we do, and there is a problem in the execution of it from titled leadership, then you get subtle leadership popping up all over the place, trying to emerge to resolve the problem so that we can execute against the vision. That's all we're trying to do is execute against the vision. So a vision is important. If we don't have a vision, then people are making up visions. Or those people who are the experts best understand what the vision should be, but are executing on a mission that has no real purpose, no value. So again, this is another condition where we can see subtle leadership. Once again, in a transparent work environment or working within a transparent frame, which is another thing I'll get into on another talk. But if we operate within a transparent frame, then the trust and safety is there for that right person to rise up, say, I think it's thus and so, be found to be right or not. And if they're not right, that's okay. He might have sparked someone else's voice. Diverse voices in a collaborative environment bring about the best possible solutions. So when you suppress a voice, you're suppressing solutions. When you suppress a voice, you're creating subtle leadership. That force that can either work with or against, and 9 times out of 10, probably working against entitled leaders or titled leadership. Whereas if an emergent leader is allowed to step up, come through, do that which is necessary, bring about that situation or normalization of the crisis or whatever it might be, they go back to doing what they were doing. What can we do with that from an organizational perspective? We mark that. Is that person a future leader? Do they want that? We have a conversation maybe about their growth, but there's certainly a hearty appreciation for them that came forward during the time of crisis to solve the problem when the standard methods didn't work. Now, let's understand there's always going to be exceptions to the standards. And that's when emergent leadership shows up. That's what we want. Think of it as a human health system. Think of the emergent leader as the T cell that's there to fight an infection or to help stop a disease from invading the body, right? To fight that virus. That's what it's there for. It's the immunosystem of the corporate body, if you allow it to work. But I could wander into some very bad territory. Anyway, this is what I'm talking about. Emergent and subtle leadership. allow situations to emerge and allow those leaders to emerge to resolve them. And your organization will be far healthier for it. My name is Jesse Perlman. I'm an Agilist. I'm a coach, a mentor, a speaker, and a guy who loves to talk about the things he thinks about. I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope there's been some value in it. And if there has or has not, please let me know. Constructive, all right? Let's work together. Let's collaborate. I appreciate diverse voices, as I said. Thank you so much. Bye.